Hello, all. Garland Nixon here, and looks like you're having a few problems in Europe. Let's talk. Hello, all. Holy moly! Sorry about that. I was struggling here with a little bit of my. Okay, everything was kind of screwing up a little bit, but I got it straight. It's not always easy. Had a long day. All right. Um, let's get going, and I want to make sure my comments are showing here. There we go. Hello, everyone. Holy moly! It's Myra Page. It's Skeptical Jerk, and it's where's Sparky when you need him? Anyway, a number of things going on right now in Europe, and I think we're going to get into the details of the individual things, but I think what's going on here in a nutshell is this is what happens when you have the illusion of democracy for a long period of time, and the illusion starts to wash away. So what do I mean? So in Europe, what we've had since the end of World War II, we won't talk about before then, but since the end of World War II, what we've had is the illusion of democracy. What we've had is the illusion of a bottom-up system wherein the people elected their elected officials, and the elected officials would then go about carrying out the business of order on behalf of the people, the same illusion that we had in the United States, right? So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the illusion of democracy. The problem is that it truly was the illusion of democracy. And that, in fact, in the United States, they have something else that I would argue that is illusory, but the people here believe in it, and that is the Constitution. So here we have a Constitution. The people believe in the Constitution. I would argue it's a bit of a fraud also. Let me put it to you like this. The ruling elite will adhere to the Constitution and the so-called rules as long as it benefits them. And when it gets to the point where they need to do what they want to do, and that whole Constitution thing is getting to be a bother, they will dispense with it. But they got in the US, they got to kind of hold on to it a bit. They can't just say, screw the Constitution, we're done with it. They effectively, their actions imply that they have no respect for the Constitution, but they just can't come out and say screw it. Whereas in Europe, the history of the ruling elite, the fact that they still have monarchs and kings and queens and things like that, in the pageantry and the courtier based rules of parliamentary procedures and things of that nature. The fact that they still have that means that it's a lot easier for them to dispense with the illusion of democracy. There's always been that, say, England and France, etc. There's always been that weird line between we're a democracy, but we still have a king and a queen who don't work and who are paid. The royal family gets, $500 million a year. And in many instances, the royal family can step in and usurp democracy. I don't know if you know this, I believe it was 1974, in Australia, there was a guy by the name of Gough Whitlam. And this guy was the prime minister of president, whatever they call it in Australia. But he was opposed to the Vietnam World War. He was opposed to U.S. hegemony. He was opposed to a lot of things, and he wouldn't go along with the game plan. And the U.S. was like, we want to do this. He was like, I'm opposed to it. He was an independent-minded soul. What happened? The United States and the UK, they simply went to the king or queen, whoever it was at the time. I think it was the queen, and they utilized some, little known monarchical procedure to depose him. They basically overthrew the leader of Australia because He wasn't going along with US and, of course, British, and, of course, who else? France. France was like making a lot of money. French Indochina, right? Which was, in fact, um, Vietnam. And so it wasn't working for the oligarchies and the royal families of the EU. They're looking at it, they're like, when they said the domino effect, they didn't mean the domino effect of communism. They meant the domino effect of colonialism. If one colonial power gets free, other colonial powers or other places will say, we want our freedom too. So that was the domino effect they were really worried about. So basically, in a nutshell, they used their monarch's power to say, okay, you know what, Australia, you're still under the crown. Your prime minister's done. We'll put in who we want. That should have been a clue for the people of Australia that they did not have a democracy. One of the things that you'll notice have noticed in recent years under the Biden administration, they started having this thing, the democracies, right? They would decide who in the world, were democracies. And then Joe Biden would have these meetings of democracies, the world's democracies. And what that meant was we decide who's democracies, meaning a democracy is a country that is a puppet country for the United States. If you're not a puppet for the US and England and the British Crown, then you're not a democracy. So what we started seeing in the last few years as the economic situation became more desperate with the rise of a multipolar, or as President Putin said recently, a polycentric world, we saw it more difficult for the ruling elite in Europe and the US to continue to do the things that they want that run so contrary to the needs of the people. U.S. had gone full neoliberal, which means you cut everything for the people, you cut it. If there's a program, if it's a healthcare, if it's food, if it's shoes, whatever it is that the government does for the people under neoliberalism, that's got to go. Money goes to the ruling elite, money goes to the corporations, money goes to the billionaires, the Zionists, whatever the case may be, the people get nothing. It is pure extraction. Take the wealth of the people and put it in the hands of the ruling elite. That's what neoliberal does openly. Right, or neoliberalism does. And because it does that, it also means that democracy starts to fall. Because why? The illusion of democracy starts to fall. Because why? Because the people would, if given a choice and they had to vote for bombs or healthcare for their children or education, they'd vote for education or healthcare every time. So now that the ruling elite say you can't have that, that means that it's not bottom-up rule anymore. It's top-down. And of course, the government's job is to stand up for the ruling elite, but convince the working class and the poor people that they're really representing them. It's getting harder and harder as it gets glaringly obvious that they're not. So let's start looking at what's happening in Europe and see if we can make some sense of it. At least we can share it. Let's start here. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has announced his resignation less than 12 hours after appointing a new cabinet. Okay, now think about this. The French Parliament is deeply divided over efforts to pass a new budget that would tackle rising debt. Now, the rising debt is from what? The rising debt is from neoliberalism. They have rising debt because they have extracted money from the working class and given it to the poor. Tax cuts for the rich, tax cuts for the corporations, more money for the war effort, more money for overseas imperial projects. That means you got to take money out of people's hands. And people aren't happy about that, right? A former defense minister, Lecornu was the seventh prime minister appointed by Emmanuel Macron, and the fifth in 2 years. His sudden resignation less than a month after entering the role makes him the shortest-lived prime minister in modern French history. So what? He comes in, Macron says, this guy's in charge. A month he lasted. Now think about that. Look at England over the last 4 years and a few years. Liz Truss, Theresa May, Bojo, Rishi Sunak. Think about it. This is what Israel was doing the last several years. They were going through government after government, prime minister after prime minister, right? It's not an accident that these parliamentary systems, England, France, you name it. Look at Germany. They've gone through a number of them. They go through prime minister after prime minister. Why? because the government doesn't represent the people. And therefore, the only thing the government can do um, as the anger and fury of the people rise, the government is not going to come around and say, hey, okay, we're going to give you what you want. No, we're going to act on your behalf. So instead, what do? Okay, we'll bring in some new stooges. We'll bring in some new puppets. We'll give you the idea that we're doing something different because we'll change the people. There was a time, let me say this. Over the last several years, one of the things that you would hear in the United States is this: we need to fire everybody in Congress and we need all these new members of Congress. People who are in the Democratic Party, why, if we could just get the right people in the Republican Party, if we could just get the right people in. Here's the bottom line: you have a problem that is systemic in nature, that is structural in nature. And if you have a systemic or structural problem and you bring in new people in the same system with the same structure, you'll get the same results. Unless you change the system or the structure, you ain't get different results. This is what this system is designed to do. It's a neoliberal system, and it is designed to take money from the poor and put it in the hands of the rich. The conservative wing of neoliberalism right now is run by Donald Trump. He's neoliberalism on steroids. That's all Trump is: to extract money from the poor and the working class and give it to the rich. That's what the Republicans do. That's what the Democrats do. They have different ways of doing it. That's what the Tories do. That's what Labor does. You name it. That's what they do. That's what the Christian Democrat, the CDU, the whatever, that's what they do. They give you different flavors of neoliberalism. Do you want banana? Or do you want peach? Or would you like mango? That's tasty. That's the flavor of the month of neoliberalism. You get the same thing. They extract money from the working class people and they put it in the hands of the rich. Now, we've got following the announcement, several political parties have called for snap parliamentary elections. Sure, go right ahead. Go right ahead. Go elect something or whatever, and you'll get a new coalition. The AfD in Germany will be locked out of all coalitions, of course, because they're saying some things that, overall, I believe the AfD that there'll be alternative for Deutschland would be a conservative neoliberalism like the Republicans here. I think the difference is they're not pro-Euro, pro-Brussels. And one of the issues going on in Europe is quite simple. And that is the EU is a supranational, supra democratic organization, right? It's outside of the structure. It's perfect, really, for neoliberalism. The EU is perfect, just like NATO for neoliberalism, because it takes any thought or hope of control from the people, from the masses, and it is this purely run by the elites group. And so what we have is we have a neoliberal group in Brussels, and they maintain parties all throughout Europe that are in favor of this neoliberal group, in favor of the EU, so that they maintain power. And as long as the EU's there, they'll just the power is taken out of the hands of the people. And even if you put somebody in charge, you're in the EU. They got to answer to the EU. As long as you're in the EU and NATO, you have no power. If you get out of the EU and NATO, you have a chance, possible, maybe, but not that good a chance. Europe's kind of screwed, tell you the truth. Anyway, several political parties have called for snap elections. Shortly after the news of Le Cornu's resignation, the Paris stock market dropped 12%, making it the worst performing index in Europe. The euro has also seen a drop of 0.7% on the back of political instability. And again, what is the political instability? The political instability is that the illusion of democracy is dissipating, and the people are having to face the reality that they don't have democracy. And of course, here's the other problem. Let me say this. They have to face a reality, and that is, if you give a dance, you got to pay the band, as they say. You can't have these colonial powers and the ruling elite doing the things that they've done and not pay a price for it, right? As an example, Immigration. I always get back to this. Why do you think there's so many Algerians in France? Why? Why do you think there's so many Algerians in France? I bet people from like the West Indies in Europe. I mean, in Britain. Why do you think that is? There's so many Caribbean people with their dreadlocks running around in UK. Why do you think that is? Here's what happened. Why do you think there's so many Middle Eastern and African people? Could it possibly be because these European countries overthrew the governments in Africa and put in puppet governments and stole all the resources, and in many instances made these countries subjects of the crown so those people could easily migrate back to the country that puppetized their government and stole all their stuff? What Europe is dealing with right now, as far as immigration, a big part of what they're dealing with is the natural effects of colonialism, of destabilizing countries. And if Trump attacks Venezuela, if he destabilizes Central and South America by starting wars and bombing and fighting, you're going to see a whole hell of a lot of refugees at the southern border of the United States, a country of 30 million people. What do you think is going to happen if Trump bombs and attacks and starts a war and destabilizes a country of 30 million people just a few odd miles away from the United States government? Not only the um, uh, Venezuelans, but a lot of other countries that the U.S. has destabilized. It will be an opportunity for a whole lot of people who are in an area of destabilization to say, this is my opportunity to make for the border also. We've got to deal with immigration and we got to deal with the border. If he gets his way and he starts a war in South America, Central America, the border of the United States is going to the United States will start looking like Europe's looking. We already kind of are, where we'll have mass immigration, not because of anything you or I did, not because of anything the working class did, but because of what the people in in power have done. And then we'll have to deal with the issue. And they're happy to have the immigration, thrilled to have immigration because they get to have cheap labor. So now what we're seeing is, as Macron, yes, we've got to get ready to go to war with Russia. Our troops have to be ready to fight with Russia at any minute, at any second. It's time for war. That's what they're saying. We're war. We need, But you have an interesting concept going on in Europe. And the concept is we have impoverished and destabilized our people, making their lives a living hell. And now we're going to say to them, they have to go fight wars for us. And they don't like us. And they're unhappy with us. What do you think would happen if France, the UK, or Germany, and the US suddenly said, we've decided we're going to do a draft to send people to fight war against Russia and a fight on behalf of the Zionists? How do you think that would work out? Further destabilization, and young people wouldn't, I don't think they'd do it. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's look at, let's keep going. We got other things going on here. Let's see. What else do we have? The Baltics. Let me find this here. That was a great story. Can I find it? There was an article. I hope I can find it. Here's what we've got. This is hilarious. The Baltics states. I'm going to try to find it for you because it's hilarious. May not be able to go. Here we go. Let's look at this one. You're going to love this. You're going to love this. The people that have all the mouth. We're ready to fight Russia. We must go to war with Russia. Baltic states can't afford to attend the UN summit. Reuters. Latvia and Lithuania may skip this year's United Nations Climate Change Conference in Brazil due to high accommodation costs, Reuters has reported. The cost of lodging in the host city of Berlin is reportedly forcing the Baltic states to participate remotely. Lithuania said its delegation may stay away after being quoted prices for accommodation exceeding $500 per person per night. Latvia's climate minister Kaspars Melnis told the news agency that his country had asked conference organizers if its negotiators could join by video. We already basically have a decision that it's too expensive for us, he said. We have a responsibility to our country's budget. The two EU countries are facing widening budget deficits as defense and social costs surge. Latvia's 2025 deficit is projected at 3% of GDP, while Lithuania's shortfall is forecast at 2.3. So the summit's less than 6 weeks away. So what's happening is this. I mean, look at this. There we go. Latvia and Lithuania. And there's where they'd be going in the Brazilian state of Pará, a beautiful area, Brazilian state, wonderful. But if you're Latvia and Lithuania, you can talk a lot of trash about Russia. Yes, we've got to close off the Baltic Sea to Russia. We've got to attack Russia. We've got to fight them now. We've got to stand up to Russia. We're behind you 100%. How dare Russia think they can stand up to the mighty Lithuania and Latvia and whatever the hell that they're at. But they can't afford hotel rooms because it's $500 a night. How broke, how poor does a country? Now, keep in mind, I mean, these are countries that have like 1 or 2 million people or some 1.7 million people. I mean, they don't have a lot of people. They are like, a community, a neighborhood on the outskirts of Moscow. Okay. And they're talking a lot of trash, but they can't back it up. But they can't afford to go to a climate change conference because the hotel rooms are too high. I don't think the Russians are quaking in their boots at the thoughts of being invaded by Latvia and Lithuania. I don't think the Russians are like, oh my God, we better watch it. We better go to all general alert. We better get out all of the Oreshniks and get ourselves together and be ready, because Latvia and Lithuania are coming across the border and they're going to take us out. And they can't afford hotel rooms. There, it says the cost of lodging in the host city is reportedly forcing the Baltic states to participate remotely. Lithuania said $500 per person per night. We just can't do that, man. Yeah, okay, Baltic states. This is Europe today. This is Europe. This is 500 a night is too much for them. That's where we're looking at. The Czech election. So what has happened? Here's an article. Let's look at the Czech election. The Czech Republic, of all places. Czech election just buried the Western dream. Voters have dealt a sharp blow to Petro Fiala's government, but no regime change looms on the horizon. The long-anticipated parliamentary elections in the Czech Republic are over. They brought several surprises. The main message is clear. The liberal government and liberalism in the West has been completely and absolutely discredited. It is genocidal. It is Zionism. It is really weird. And there is some crazy hypersexual stuff going on that most people are uncomfortable with. Okay. No power reversal regime change on the scale of Orban's Hungary or Fico's Slovakia can be expected. Cautious optimism is warranted, right? Voter participation reached levels not seen since the 90s, when parliamentary democracy and competitive elections were still a novelty. So what we have is a lot of people showing up to vote, a tremendous amount of people showing up to vote, and a change of direction. 70% turnout suggests that the Czech society once again finds itself at a decisive moment. A 70% turnout, very, very high turnout. The outgoing liberal government of Petro Fiala presented itself as the guarantor of Czech's Western orientation, while painting the opposition as pro-Russian collaborators seeking to pull the country under Kremlin control or under the sway of other authoritarians such as China. Okay, didn't work. Didn't work because it's the West saying that we're going. There's a contrast between democracy and authoritarianism, right? Democracy is the West, authoritarianism is France. I mean, excuse me, authoritarianism is Russia. It is China. You know, oh, they're so evil, and this is an existential choice, and you got to go with democracy. And the people of the Czech Republic exercise democracy. I ain't saying I like this guy. I ain't saying I'm aligned with him. I ain't saying I don't like him. I don't say I'm not aligned with him. I'm saying it's none of my damn business. What I'm saying is what we're seeing in Europe is what happens when the ruling elite get further and further from what the people want. The Czech people don't want to be dragged into a damn war with Russia. And they have spoken, and they showed up in mass, and they voted for someone who is not, yay, let's go with Ursula von der Leyen and the Lithuanians who can't even pay their damn hotel bills. How about that? Hey, let's go with these people. Now, we might have to sleep outside in a van or something like that because they can't pay their hotel bills, but, you know, we'll do the best we can do. Let's see. The Slovak-born tycoon, who was the guy that won, thus joined Václav Klaus and Milo Zeman as one of the defining figures of modern Czech politics. The Babis, that's his name, or Babis, phenomenon embodies the transformation of politics in liberal democracies, where the traditional left-right divide has become less relevant and increasingly hollow. Exactly. Because what has been, quote, a liberal democracy, okay, quote, a liberal democracy is neither liberal nor a democracy. They have become totalitarian. They've become ultra-liberal fascism. And so the term democracy and liberalism doesn't have any relevancy to a person that can't pay their bills and that sees their economic life, their economic future, their hopes unraveling. Those terms, liberal democracy, stand up, it means nothing. People are saying, I got to eat, man. I can't eat. I got to pay my bills. And it is now obvious that my government is not concerned with how I pay my bills and how I live. And they've got some plans that has nothing to do with me. I'm voting for this guy. I want out. This guy says he doesn't. I ain't saying he's good or bad. I'm just saying they want out of, quote, liberal fascism, liberal totalitarianism. It's over. People are trying to get away from it. Okay, let's see. A future Babis government, the Babis is the guy, is unlikely to deliver a major shift in relations with NATO or the EU. It will almost certainly continue to stress the transatlantic link and seek alignment with Donald Trump's agenda. So we will see. Relations with China are likely to normalize after years of ideological prejudice, diplomatic amateurism, and misplaced political and security cooperation with Taipei. Russia, however, presents a more complex challenge. The motorists openly reject dialogue with Moscow as long as the Ukraine war continues. And unlike Slovakia, Babis would win little domestic support by seeking cooperation with Russia under current conditions. At most, a recalibration of Czech policy toward Ukraine is possible, halting the ammunition initiative, backing Trump's peace efforts, such as they are, and passively following EU sanctions rather than engaging in radical activism and confrontation with Moscow. Babis' stance resembles that of Slovakia, Hungary, or Austria. This could lead to improved relationship with the Visegrad group, strengthening Central Europe as an autonomous player in international affairs. So I think what we're starting to see is the rise of a Central Europe, okay, some kind of a Central European alignment that is not aligned with the Western Europe liberal kind of weirdos, with the Western Europe extreme anti-Moscow, almost pro-war, almost pushing for conflict with Moscow, with lunacy of blaming Moscow for everything. Every time they lose, a bedroom slipper, it was Moscow's fault. And therefore we have to be ready to fight Moscow because they're stealing our bedroom slippers. I think there's a Central European bloc that's growing, that Western Europe is fighting off in Romania. They're fighting off in Moldova. Otherwise, that would be part of it if they weren't able to, push back against democracy there. So we've got a growing Central European bloc, a growing political bloc in Europe that has had enough of liberal authoritarianism and liberal warmongering. So we will see how that works, but that's where we are. Garland, can you define the term liberal fascism? Sure. What I mean is this. So the traditional liberalism in the US was born of the left, but has significantly deviated from the left, but still uses the term left, right? The traditional left, which I come out of the traditional left, right? Anti-war, anti-corporations, suspicious of concentrated power, somewhat mistrustful of the government, and okay, that's the traditional left. The liberal left of today is pro-war, is pro-corporation, is anti-union, anti workers' rights. I come from union background. I come from workers' rights, right? The liberalism of today is very anti-union. It's very pro-war. It's very pro-corporate. It's very pro-Wall Street, right? It's pro the investment capital people, right? The traditional left that I come out of is very anti-Wall Street and invested capital. Very, very mistrustful of it, right? Additionally, the traditional left that I come out of is kind of can at least accept and align itself with a somewhat social conservatism. Some social conservatism can be accepting of and aligning with some traditionalist and social conservatism in some areas, right? Liberals, no social conservatism whatsoever. They don't want to align with them. They hate them, and they're very authoritarian. So my way or the highway. They will not align with them, but they want to call themselves the left. So they have renamed the left. They have now said the left is not Garland and those people who are in opposition to war, who are untrustworthy of the government, who are untrustworthy of corporates, who are untrustworthy of Wall Street. No, that's not the left. The left now is liberalism, and the liberal left is redefined as trans bathroom bills. It's something to do with trans stuff, something to do with LGBTQ plus stuff. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much how they define themselves as the left now. We are very open towards sexual stuff, right? That's how they define themselves as the left. No elements of economic class-based, of anti-war, of anti-corporate, none of that. That's the liberal fascists. The liberal fascists do things like, we will attack those who disagree with us. We won't talk with those who disagree with us. We will attack them, right? That was, okay, Me Too, which was conveniently used against their enemies, but they didn't use it internally. So Me Too was good unless you were Joe Biden. Then Me Too was not applied. It is selectively applied. So this totalitarian left selectively applies their standards to their enemies, not to the people inside of their circle. All the things that they apply only is selectively applied for their use and for power. So the totalitarian left is very pro-war, pro-corporate, pro-Wall Street, and they've reduced the term left to mean something to do with LGBTQ plus or something like that, or some word they've made up, some acronym they've made up. BIPOC. What the hell is that? It's Black or Indigenous Person of Color. They got to make up shit. They got to make up people, names for people. It is, what do you call it? Identity politics. We've got to stand up for this group or that group. no substantive politics that has to do with things like, oh, I don't know, we're opposing war, we're opposing imperialism, we're opposing these corporations that are like making, Franken vegetables, these genetically modified foods and things like this. They'll claim to be vegan, but everything's genetically modified. So there's this totalitarian left is just a fascist, of just a form of fascism. It's ultra liberal fascism. All it is. In the same way that, say, a right wing fascism is ultra nationalist fascism, the liberals version is an ultra liberal fascism. All right, let us continue. We're talking about Europe. Let's look at what's happening in Italy. Italy protests. Oops. Italy protests. Let's look. If we go online, this is really something as a traditional lefty that makes my heart feel good. Mass protests and strikes for Gaza bring Italy to a standstill. Doesn't that just make you smile? Some things make me smile. There's a song, You Just Make Me Smile, right? Roads and ports were blocked. Schools closed after unions called for a general strike over Israel's war on Gaza. That's what you got to do. Yeah, tell them some bitches we ain't going to work. We will not comply. This country is ours and it ain't yours. And if you commit the genocide, we ain't down with it. And again, a perfect example. Let me give you three names: Obama, Trump, Maloney. Obama came in and he was your liberal guy, right? He was fake progressive. Oh, yes, I'm standing for whatever, liberalism. And Bob, he was a warmongering Wall Street puppet. So all Obama was a Wall Street warmongering puppet. He was a fraud. He was a neoliberal. He was a neoconservative. Okay. Trump comes in. Look at him. I'm going to stop the warmongers. Judge me by the wars I stop, not the wars I start. And now what's going on with Gaza? Did he stop that? He's sending, he tell us that Bush lied us into a war with Iran. Bush lied us into a war with Iran. And we were like, yeah, you're right about that. And now he's like, I've got to go to war with Venezuela. Why? How about maybe drugs, something, traffic, maybe? Will that work? It's a lie. You want to do the same thing that Bush did, a lie for oil. Okay, he did it for Israel and to steal the oil of Iraq. And you want to do it to maybe make up money for the national debt, to consolidate international power by controlling oil. You're a liar, Donald Trump. You're George W. Bush. You're lying us into a war. And how about Maloney? Yes, elect me and I'll stand up against the globalists. Yes, sirree. I'm a member of the Brothers Party, whatever the hell, Smothers Brothers, I don't know, whatever. But she's a fraud. As soon as she gets in, what does she do? The same thing, a neoliberal lion fraud. She gets in, all righty. Now, what do I need to do to make the globalists happy? She was a liar. She was a fraud. And Trump and Obama was, and Trump was. They're all the same person. When the system needs when the people get upset and the system needs something new to stick out there so they can do the same thing, they find an Obama, they find a Trump, they find a Maloney. So here we have it. Again, what do we have in Italy? The government is standing with Zionism. The ruling elite are standing with Zionism. The people don't like that. What is the theme of my discussion with Europe? The theme is the ruling elite are so far away from the people that they are acting against the interest and the morals of the people. And the people are starting to fight back. Roads and ports were blocked. Look at that. It's beautiful. Trade unions, students, activist groups, and families blocked highways and transport hubs in cities across the country. People have had enough. They've had enough. They put up with this crap. So what? Look at this. Here's the problem they have. And therein lies the problem, brother. Therein lies the problem for the masses. There's more of us than there are of them. And the day we learn how to count is the day that their power ends. the day that they can't commit genocide, the day that they can't take all of our money and spend it for wars and give it to Wall Street and the city of London, the day we learn how to count is the day we look at that picture and say how many people are on one side and how many cops are the other side. And they can trample them, and there's nothing the cops can do but run and or die. Sweeping strikes and nationwide protests seized parts of Italy on Friday as pressure mounts on Meloni's government to take a stronger stand against Israel. She can't do it. And she not can't, she won't do it because she is a Zionist puppet. Trade unionists, students, active groups, and families blocked highways and transport hubs in cities across the country carrying Palestinian flags. Over 2 million people attended the protest. Italy's biggest union, CGL, said unions called for a general strike on Thursday after Israelis intercepted the global Salmud flotilla, a fleet of blah, 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 blah. Demonstrators said Italy's government did not do enough to defend the crews. They did nothing. They're calling on the government to cut military ties with Israel. No, they're not going to do it. Recognize the Palestinian state, ain't going to do it. They may do that. And cut arms spending, not going to do it because they don't work for you. Rome has said it will not recognize a Palestinian statehood until the hostages are released and Hamas is out of government in Gaza. So the bottom line is this. The people are saying, we want you to do something. And the government is saying, no, they don't work for you. But now that you know that, it's time to act. Protesters obstructed major highways, as well as walking on the tracks, blocking trains. Transport workers, healthcare workers, teachers went on strike, leading to canceled trains and closed schools, while students occupied universities. Dock workers blocked gates to the port, causing long lines of motionless trucks. Listen to this. You gotta love this. Transport Minister Matteo Salvini said the strike was illegal and warned strikers risk penalties both personally and as trade unions. Meloni said on Thursday that the disruption would not benefit Palestinians, would only cause trouble for Italians, accusing the strikers of wanting to have a long weekend. How dare you, little scumbags? Meloni told you, didn't she? It is illegal. You are risking penalties. Time to build some of those wooden things with the little blade in the middle that goes. In Rome, a procession of demonstrators marched from Terni train station, which was blocked off by police. This government doesn't condemn what is happening in Gaza, Clara, a 24-year-old protester from Venza told Politico. No, they condemn what you're doing. They don't work for you. They can't stand you. And if you're doing the right thing. You cannot allow a government that does not represent you to maintain power. You have to, and to tell you what you're doing is illegal, to tell you what you're doing is risking penalties. It's your country. Don't put up with it. An 8-year-old child held a sign reading, "Children of Gaza, we are with you." The leader of CJL said protesters were bringing a message of solidarity and fraternity to the entire world, adding that a serious government should have the humility to listen to the people. This ain't a serious government. It's not a government that works for you. They don't give a damn about you. They hate you. They would just as soon mow you down. And the same goes for the rest of the Western world. Same goes for the US. The same goes if they thought anything of you. If they respected you, they would do the things that you're asking them to do. But they don't because they can't stand you, so they won't. And you're doing the right thing in Italy. You're doing the right thing. So there we have it, dear fluffy friends. And we'll go this. Look at this. Ooh, that fixed that. Well, Israel's fixed everything. Reuters, look at this. Italy bans pro-Palestinian October 7th demonstration in Bologna. Attention, right there you go. They figured out how to fix this thing. They're banning it. You are not allowed to demonstrate. There we go. Authorities in the northern city have banned a pro-Palestinian demonstration. There we go. They're banning the demonstrations. Isn't that nice? Let's see. How about we look in the past day and see what we got? Warning for Italy versus Israel. More people inside the stadium than outside. I don't want to hear about Greta Thunberg, tell you the truth. Greta Thunberg. Oh, it's all about Greta Thunberg, right? Italy, mass protests and general strike over Gaza signal mounting working class opposition to war and authoritarian rule. There we go. So that we got it. Apparently, there's mounting working class opposition to war and authoritarian rule. I thought Putin was the authoritarian. I thought China was the authoritarian. I thought everybody but the West, everybody but Italy, they're not authoritarian. No, are they? Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to plug up my computer. I just looked and it's about to die on me. There you go. Now we're getting somewhere. But what we're looking at in Europe, hooray, Italy, love you. Wonderful. A friend of mine just got back from Italy and he said just spray painted, it's like Free Palestine is spray painted all over the friggin' country. But the reality is, all of this crap that we're looking at in Europe, and it's coming to America. Oh, it's coming into to America. All this stuff is, in my opinion, simply a result of it something very simple, and that is that the ruling elite rule the government, that they are low-life scumbag, criminal, pirate, thieves, murderers, cutthroats. They're nothing but big time international criminals, and that they're robbing the people blind. So what's going on is the people are waking up to understand that they don't have a democracy. Some of us are anyway. Some of us still think there's a democracy. Oh yes, this is a democracy. So, but think about it. It's like this. This is a democracy. So they should listen to us. But they're not listening to you, are they? And you know, and I know they ain't going to start. The Italian government's not going to wake up and say, now that the people have all decided in mass that they want us to change our tune on Gaza, I think we'll change our tune. They're never going to do that. They've told you you're not allowed to protest and you're risking big problems here, buddy. You're going to be in a lot of trouble if you try this. They're not like, hey, wow, the masses want something. And they're not worried about your elections because they know they're going to give you the Tories. Hey, who do you want? Do you want the Labor Party? The Conservatives, they'll come in. Hey, do you want Bojo? Maybe Keir Starmer. Ooh, you really showed Labor in England, didn't you? You really fixed those bastards. I mean, you really showed the Conservatives, the Tories. You really fixed those. You brought in Keir Starmer. Oh man, you're going to get something different now. And guess what? When he leaves, Nigel Farage's party. Let me tell you something. Farage is doing the Zionism thing. Farage has controlled opposition. In my opinion, Farage has already started warming up his I love the Zionist tune, and he's going to be a worthless piece of crap, and so is his party, in my opinion. I may be wrong, but I think that every 4 years, you're just playing pin the tail on the donkey, and you're the donkey. How about pin the tail on the flunky? That's what we're playing every 4 years, and people have to realize that, and people have to go to the streets, and people have to do a general strike and say, you know what, this country's just going to fall apart then. We're not going to work. Remember this, we will not comply. That is what the people in Europe, that is what the people in the United States, that is the edge we're getting closer to, and that's the only way we're going to get anything, is say we will not comply. That's where we are. Thanks a lot, everybody. Certainly appreciate everybody taking their time out of their busy schedules to watch my show. Let me see. Have I heard from Jody Brar? No. I don't know if we have her tomorrow. I think I have her tomorrow at 9 a.m. I certainly hope so. At any rate, if you can afford it, Patreon, buy me a coffee. It's always easy. Just do the old buy Garland a coffee. How much? $5. How many? However many, and you can do it monthly, or you can just do it, one at a time. Certainly, I've got Cash App, PayPal. There's a lot of ways to donate. I certainly appreciate those who help keep this channel on the air. And last but not least, don't forget, I have a PO box. And so if you want to do snail mail, whatever it is, if you want to snail mail me a book, If you want to mail me just a letter or something that you've written, a card, I've had all kinds of cool stuff, a donation, I've had shirts, you name it, cool stuff donated. So whatever, I certainly appreciate it. But don't forget, the most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms. I'm out.